Hello, and welcome to Blooming a Better Self. My name is Jennifer Salomon, and as always, I am your host for this mini-series. Today, our topic will be relationships, and I have here my special guest, Dr. Berkey. Dr. Berkey, would you mind introducing yourself for us?
Thank you. I'm Dr. Janet Berkey, and I'm an assistant professor here in the Communication Department at Eastern, and I'm also a licensed therapist, licensed in New Mexico and Texas.
Well, thank you for being here today.
I'm excited to be here.
Me too.
Thank you.
All righty, let's get started with the first question. So, what is a healthy relationship?
Well, there are a lot of things that go into having a healthy relationship, but I think the foundational one certainly would be respect. Respect for the other person, not just as a person, but with their gifts, their talents, their knowledge, all of those kinds of things. So just respecting them. And along with that, you have this great sense of friendship. So depending on what type of relationship you have, there may be other things, but certainly friendship along with that for many relationships. Now, if it were an employee-employer relationship, you doubtful would have, or you may not have the friendship component. You may or may not with that. But certainly you would have growth and to be able to maintain that concept of yourself. Who are you as an individual in the relationship, and how are you growing, and how's the other person growing? So I think all of those things enter into a healthy relationship.
That's good. I like the friendship part. Are there different types of love?
There are different types of love. Depending on who you ask, where you look, what you read, there may be 8, or it seems like the French may even have 13 different words for love.
Wow.
But I'm not French, so I don't know all of those. But did you want to talk about a few of them?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we have agape love, and agape love is that unconditional love, and I can love someone just because they're part of the human race, and when we do that, we have this unconditional regard for them. We call it an unconditional positive regard. So we can have agape love for a lot of people that we may actually not even have a real friendship with, which sounds a little strange, but when you think about it, we can have a love for mankind.
Oh.
And depending on our spiritual perspective, that's a deep part of that, that agape love and just having this regard for other people, this kind regard. We have Eros love. That's the romantic love, the sexual type of love that a lot of people really do look for. Most people end up in some type of a partnership like that. So we have that kind. We have philia or phileo love, and that is an affectionate love for other people. Then we have philastia, and that's self-love. So that can either be healthy or it can be unhealthy. We can have a real healthy self-esteem and participating in self-care for ourselves, or we can have this really negative and unkind love for ourselves. And I often tell people when they say unkind or negative things about themselves, would you allow someone else to come into your home and say that to you? Or to someone you love. So, we can gauge our own self-talk with that too. We have storge love, and that's a familiar type of love. And interestingly enough, that's a friendship, being familiar with each other. And in the research that I've read, this is where many affairs start. Because people become familiar with each other over coffee. Let's just go have coffee and chat. Let's sit in the break room during lunch, and then maybe going out of your way to look for those opportunities. So when married couples or romantic couples find that there's been an affair take place, rarely does that start with the sexual type of love. Usually it starts with a familiar friendship connection there. So interesting stuff that we don't think about a lot. We have pragma love, enduring love, that takes care of duty and responsibility. And we have that very often with the people we live with because there are things we have to do. We have ludus, which is flirting, and that focuses on fun. And a lot of people think, well, I can't have ludus love and pragma love. Well, yeah, you really can. You can take care of responsibilities, take care of duties in the home, in the relationship, and you can still have a whole lot of fun while you're doing that, this playful thing. And then you can have what's called mania or obsessive love. And I really kind of wonder, is this real love?
Yeah,
because it doesn't fit most people's definition of what would be healthy to be obsessed with another person.
Well, the word obsessed being in there.
Obsessed, yeah. Most of us don't think of a relationship that we want to have with someone being obsessed.
Yeah.
You know, in an unhealthy way toward us. So, yeah, those are just a few types.
Wow, those are very interesting things.
They are interesting, aren't they?
I like what you said, though, about the self-love, how if we would allow somebody else to say that to us, or because that one's the hardest one, I think. Well, one of the hardest ones.
I think it's one of the hardest ones, too. And if we can't hold ourselves in a healthy, high regard, it's almost impossible to hold anyone else in that healthy, high regard.
That's true. What are the biggest misconceptions of relationships?
Well, there are so many. Years ago, they used to say that women married men waiting till after the ceremony that they could change the man.
Oh.
And the man was hoping the woman would never change. Well, here's news for both of them. The man probably isn't going to change in the way that they may want them to. And women do change. And in fact, all of us change. All of us grow. It's something kind of silly. I don't know that I'd put a lot of stock into it, but that used to go around quite a bit. But one of the biggest misconceptions about love and about relationships is that if it's meant to be, it's going to be easy. And the truth is that 69% of the issues that we deal with are unsolvable.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really fascinating that we think, you know, we get in this relationship that we want and everything just ought to come to us and so easily, and, you know, we shouldn't have conflict, we shouldn't have to work on things. But the truth is that 69% of those things are not solvable, according to world-renowned relationship expert John Gottman. But he does say they're manageable. So we learn to manage those things rather than solve them. So maybe you're in a relationship with someone who loves sports and craves being at sports events and wants to eat, drink, and sleep sports, and you're not into sports. So you're not going to change that about that other person. And if you do wind up changing it, then you probably have a more serious issue on hand. But you begin to manage that. You know, how much is the person going to participate in that area versus how much are they going to be participating and invested in the relationship. So learning to manage issues is the big thing.
So knowing also that it's not going to be easy.
It's not going to be easy. Yeah, and anything that's worth it is not going to be easy. We both know that.
That's true. Yes, that's true. So now, speaking into more of like the obsessive and stuff like that, how does one leave a toxic relationship?
Well, there are a lot of things involved in leaving a toxic relationship. And I would say the first thing would be to get support. I would be very careful about gaining support just from friends or family members. I would probably look into getting professional support for that. A professional can teach you not only how to handle the situation, but how to handle yourself. Again, for that self-growth. You know, if you have to leave a toxic relationship, that's going to be traumatic. There's really not any way around it. Even if it benefits you, it's going to be a traumatic event. So there's post-traumatic growth that could occur. But how do you stay sane? How do you stay safe in that? You may also need to get legal support with that. You know, determine your level of safety. Do I need a restraining order? You know, do I need someone to accompany me to my next living place? Those kinds of things. And one of the things that I would really encourage people is if you're going to leave a toxic relationship, don't play around with that. Don't threaten to leave. You're either going to leave or you're not. Now, there may be some things where you need to talk about, you know, this isn't working for me. and here are some things that you could change if you're willing to do that, and maybe give a remedial plan. Sounds kind of strange, but let your expectations be known, and this is probably the date that this is going to happen if you don't comply and get on board with these things. But don't play around. Don't threaten to leave. And if you choose to leave, leave well. And I tell women that I work with, particularly in abusive and really toxic relationships where there's been domestic violence, make a plan. Don't just decide, I'm leaving tonight, and leave tonight. You want to make sure that you have cash to get you a little ways out. You want to make sure that you have a place to go. Don't just leave the house and not have any. Now, certainly, if you're running for your life or safety, you need to go and go as quickly as you can. But if you have some time to plan. Again, cash, have a plan where you're going to go. In the cases of domestic violence, I encourage women, keep your shoes on your feet in case you have to get out of that house or that situation as fast as you can. Wear your shoes. If you're awake, if your feet are on the floor, they need to have shoes on them so you can go. Make sure that your gas tank is filled with gas so that you can leave and you don't have to stop for that. Stow a little bit of cash somewhere that only you know where it is. If it's that toxic and you need to get out, then you need to be prepared. You could also have some clothes so that you can easily get to them. Maybe even have clothes at a friend's home or your parents' home or, somewhere like that. So there's a lot that goes into it. Author and therapist Leslie Vernick has written several books on the emotionally destructive relationship, the emotionally destructive marriage, and she gives not only checklists of how you can determine if your relationship is toxic, but also best practices, best ways to leave that if you need to get out. So there's a lot goes into it that most people don't really think about.
It's true, especially when it's physical abuse also.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's a scary one.
It is.
What to do when two individuals really love each other, but they fight constantly?
Okay. So when we say fight, we probably need to define that a little more.
Probably more like argue, I guess.
Argue,
okay.
Fight. So no, that's okay. We use that word for lots of things, don't we? I fought with the kids, I fought with my husband, I fought with my boss, whatever. But first of all, for violence in the home, there is no excuse for that. Absolutely zero, and it should not be tolerated on any level. Now, arguing, there's a misconception, again, that if we argue, then the relationship is doomed. But the truth is, the research has proven or shown that couples can argue quite a bit and still be very healthy and very happy with each other. Oh. And sometimes that's because they're getting out those feelings of, I'm unhappy with this, this needs to change, instead of stuffing those things. It's actually said that couples in a marital relationship tend to wait 6 years too late to go to counseling, or 6 years after they should have gone. And by that time, one person very often either physically or emotionally has their foot out the door and they're making an exit plan. So, just because couples argue doesn't mean that the sky is falling. So if that's something that's interfering with your relationship, you can get support. Therapists can help you. Relationship coaches can help you. So there are lots of avenues. There are all kinds of intensives that, you can go work on your stuff for a full day, one person with a couple to do that. And there are just lots of ways that couples really can get support in a relationship to help stop those negative patterns and get them on a healthy track.
Even if they're not married? Like if
they're not married.
Okay, because sometimes I feel like, I don't know, like some couples are told to do that, but they're not married, so it feels kind of like, well, if we're not married, then... First of all, a therapist should service you. Okay.
Either way, if you're willing to come work on your relationship, even if it's just a friendship,
Oh, okay.
that you want to try to salvage, and you're right. We typically tend to go toward, couples and being married. But the truth is sometimes just friendships run into trouble. But you still want to salvage that.
That's true.
So you can get help. But yeah, lots of people who choose not to enter into marriage can still go and get the work done that they need to get done. Yeah, absolutely. Good point.
Awesome. What are some tips that you have on making a relationship grow?
So there are a couple. One is bids. And this is really interesting, and it doesn't sound like a big deal, but it saves the relationship. So, if we were sitting together and you were reading the newspaper and you said, oh, there's a great article in here on my favorite sports team. And I don't even have to get into that whole article just to say, oh, that sounds interesting. It's like that conversational volley. Even just the, and that sounds good. Maybe we'd like to go to this event. Just those little things. Research says that couples who answer each other's bids in that conversational volley, they go the distance in a healthier relationship. So it's really fascinating that just these little things that we don't think much about have a huge impact. And then rituals of attachment. And a lot of people, couples or friendships, say we just don't have time to add anything else to our plate. But what about, we all have to eat dinner, or we all do eat dinner. What about sitting at the table and talking about our highs for the day, our lows for the day? It's the high-low game. And children can even enter into this, which really increases that family bond. What about when people come home at the end of the day? Just waiting for them, giving them a hug, giving them a kiss, acknowledging they're there. When people leave in the morning, saying, I hope you have a great day, and just touching them for a moment, those kinds of things. Breaking, having a drink, and I'm not talking about necessarily an alcoholic drink, because that's not always best right before you go to bed, but having something that you enjoy, just sitting for 15, 20 minutes at the end of the day and just talking. So rituals of attachment, and there's a whole list, and if you wanted the resource, I could certainly get you a list of several things that people can do just to increase their attachment to each other and grow those bonds without spending a lot of money and without taking a lot of time to get them done. So rituals of attachment are super important.
Definitely. Even you just saying the responding to the bids.
Yes.
Because that, at least it makes, even if you don't necessarily care, but having that yes and stuff, it makes you feel like heard and like they're paying attention.
Yes, and isn't that important?
Yes.
There's I think it's the Zulu tribe, that they have a greeting that when they meet, one of them says, I am here to be seen, and the other person says, I see you.
Oh.
And isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, that is.
I don't see it happening around here, but I think that is so beautiful. We're all here to be seen, and to be seen and to be heard is critical in our relationships.
It is.
Yeah.
Definitely. So how does one figure out their own love language?
There are a couple of ways. There are several books on this by Gary Chapman, and he is a faith-based author, but many folks I know who are not faith-based enjoy his work. And you can actually go to his website. Oh. I would Google Gary Chapman Love Language Quiz.
Okay.
And there's a short quiz that you can actually, I know, great. And it's free. It's free. So you can do that. You can read the books and see, okay, which of these things apply to me? So there are 5, separate love languages. And it's not that hard to figure that out, but just a little bit of investigation for that.
So once we know what our love language is, how do we tell someone how we accept love without, I don't know, sometimes offending them, or just to tell them this is how I receive love and this is how you need to love me?
Let me ask you a question in response to that. If someone were to say to you, I love it when you surprise me with a gift every so often, how would you respond to that if someone...
Then I just know that they like gifts and then just give it
They
to
like
them.
gifts.
Yeah.
You know, it's saying, I really love it when you take out the trash and I don't have to ask you twice to do that. That's an act of service.
Yeah.
You know, when you see that it's overflowing.
Yeah.
And I love it when you call me in the middle of the day for no reason, or send me a text with a fun or romantic emoji on it or whatever. You know, I love that, just being thought of. And so just sharing what you really like with the other person. Most of the time, people will begin picking up on that. You know, you may have to tell them in more plain terms, just don't be unkind about it. Just say, you know, I want you to know I really love this when you do this thing, fill in the blank for that. And most people who do respect you and who do want to grow that friendship will receive that well.
Oh, okay. So what about people that say things like, oh, well, that's not how I show love, or it's not how I love?
They may need some therapy after that. Here's the thing. We can all learn to show another person how valuable they are to us. And it may be out of our comfort zone. It may not be something we particularly enjoy. But if we love and value and respect the other person and want to grow the relationship, we can begin doing some of those things. And, you know, sometimes that's just a hard call. Are we going to do it or are we not? Are we going to show this person how valuable they are to us and how much they mean to us, whether that's our natural love language or not? So that's kind of, you know, every couple, every friendship has to decide those things for themselves. And certainly a therapist or a coach could help you work on some of those things.
Definitely. And just so that they know, what were the 5 love languages?
The 5 love languages. Yeah, I had to make a list because I always leave one off. Physical touch. And that can include sexual touch, but it's not all about that. You know, sometimes it's just holding a hand, patting someone on the arm.
Hug.
Yeah, a hug. Yes, absolutely. Words of affirmation. Wow, you did a really great job on that. You know, I am so proud of you. Fantastic job. Just words that encourage the other person. Show them that you're proud of them and you think that they're great and what they do is great. Acts of service. That can be all kinds of things. We think of it like taking out the trash, filling up the car with gas. You know, it could just be going to a job every day that you're not in love with in order to provide for the needs of the family. It could be something like that. There's also the gift of time, just spending time with each other, just being together. And that doesn't cost any money at all to do that. Yeah, just to sit and be together and visit. And then gifts. And those are, you know, Christmas gifts, birthday gifts, anytime gifts. And they can be expensive or they don't have to be expensive. You know, just picking up a little something. I saw this and I thought about you. For a gift lover, someone whose love language is gifts, they'll be all over that. They will love it. My son brought me several years ago when I was teaching 3rd grade. It was a cold day, and he brought me my favorite London fog drink. And I thought, I just feel so valued right now.
Yeah.
In the middle of the day, he thought of me, and he stopped and did that. So that was an act of service, and it was a gift.
Yeah, but it was a nice gift.
It was a nice
cold
gift.
day.
Yes. Yes.
Well, are there any other thoughts or comments that you would like to say?
I would encourage anyone who wants to work on their relationship to let the other person in the relationship know how valuable it is to them and how much they do want to grow and to continue to be with that person. Again, whether it's a romantic relationship or a friendship, and just to work on that, because relationships are worth it. You know, we hear people say, I don't need anybody else, but they do. Everyone needs other people, and it's important to invest ourselves into our relationships.
Did you guys hear that? Well, thank you so much for being here, Dr. Berkey. It has been a true pleasure to have you here with all your information.
I so enjoyed it.
I'm glad. Thank you. So for all of you watching out there, I hope you enjoyed this podcast as much as I did. And Next week, I will be having a reflection over it, and I may or may not have a guest with me on that one. So please stay tuned to find out, and I am so happy you are here watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.